Funding for NEOtropolis has been provided by the following.
Hello, I'm Lester Lefton. Kent State University is proud to sponsor NEOtropolis, a program that looks at the forces that impact the region. Kent State is one of those forces. As a center of educational excellence and as an economic development engine, our efforts at Kent State have a powerful and positive impact on the region through research and development, the arts and innovation, and preparing our graduates to compete in the global marketplace. I hope you enjoy the program, and I invite you to learn more about Kent State University.
The John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, supporting transformational ideas that promote informed and engaged communities.
Hello and welcome to NEOtropolis, the show about the forces of technology, globalization, and diversity, how they impact the way we live, work, learn, and play. I'm Luke Frazier, your host and guide for the NEOtropolis journey. Tonight, bumblebees suggest mimicries in the technology of design, building roofs turn green for energy savings, and we discuss the obligation of recycling. Tonight's episode is called Naturally Futuristic, and we'll aim for insight about how the elements of the natural world are maybe the most advanced design thinking around. Maybe it's not all about digital chips after all. We'll talk about our interaction with the diverse world of animals and plants. We'll also try and understand a bit more about what the globalization of being green and doing green means in the corporate world. Biomimicry and sustainability are flowing like a river into our studio. But first, let's take a visit to the Wonder Wall. The Wonder Wall is our first stop every week for a question that we want you to respond to with all your tech tools at your disposal. Put it out there with your best tech foot forward. Joining me now is NEOtropolis' social media expert, Kathleen Colin. Hey, Kathleen.
Hi, Luke.
How are you?
Hi, everybody. Good.
Tell me what's on the Wonder Wall tonight.
Well, tonight's question is, which do you think is a better green action? Recycling your bottles and cans, or deciding to start walking to all of your appointments and shopping errands when they're within a half mile from your home?
So, like, what if I take my bottles and cans together to the recycling center, walk them there?
Double bonus points.
Double. I love it. I love it. So how can people get in touch with us in the next 20 minutes?
We'd love to hear everyone's comments on Facebook.com/NEOtropolis TV, on Twitter @NEOtropolis TV, and on our experimental page on Google+.
Excellent. Google+, what's that all about?
It is the social network that is changing the way everything's happening online.
Excellent. I love that. And, you know, I want to remind people that you're going to be here every week for our season, and you're going to be really getting at social media and how we can use it and how important it is. So it is important. Is that right?
It's very important.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kathleen. We'll check you in a little while. We're actually going to see a little update in the middle of the show, too. So we'll see you then.
Okay. Thanks, Luke.
Excellent. So off the Wonder Wall to a short clip from a NEOtropolis not business as usual piece from last season. I want to use it to launch our discussion about issues around sustainability and biomimicry. Here's a buzzing bit about bees.
Sometimes inspiration for a new business strikes when you least expect it. That was the case for Beecology when their inspiration came in the form of this little guy who is now the company logo. And it is definitely not business as usual. 7 years ago, one of David Rozepka's co-workers asked if he could put some bees out at the family farm in Geauga County.
I said, you know, okay, put them out there, but I don't want anything to do with these things. They sting. I don't want to be near them. I don't want to, you know, you take care of them. So puts them out there, and he says, you know, I can't come out anymore. I said, what do you mean you can't come out anymore? He said, I can't come out here because my wife is pregnant, and I'm not going to be able to tend to the bees. She's not letting me out of the house.
Concerned for the livelihood of the bees, David asked him to show him how to take care of them.
So comes out there, shows me what to do, and I finally, you know, looked at these things in a totally different way that I've ever seen. They became a real passion of mine, and I enjoyed them.
The bees sparked the idea for David's company, Beecology.
I started to make lip balms. You know, I took the beeswax, I go, all this beeswax, what the heck am I going to do with it? I could either make candles. So I started to make lip balms. I started in my basement. I started mixing together oils and waxes and essential oils, and I started giving them out to family and friends, and all of a sudden, people started to like them and they wanted more and more and more and more.
So after the company began nearly 3 years ago, he started selling them in a few local stores, and it's grown from there. But David never had any experience in this industry.
I was in real estate development with our family business, and I went to law school, and I'm a lawyer beekeeper.
Interesting combination, you may say, but David insists there are many similarities in business, bees, and the environment.
So I think you can combine a lot of those different things. It's not just beekeeping, it's a whole world. The bees really mimic our world, and we almost mimic them as much as they mimic us.
Oh, the birds and the bees, and maybe they are more like me than I want to admit. And if you want to see the rest of that piece, you can go to NEOtropolis.org. It's quite a good piece. That was just a little selection. But what about this notion of biomimicry? What does it have to do with how we design our world and actually live in it? Joining me now is Mike Dungan, Interim Executive Director of Entrepreneurs for Sustainability, E4S. Welcome to NEOtropolis.
Thanks, Luke. Great to be here.
So, first I want to get right to a definition. What is biomimicry?
Biomimicry is a design strategy that's inspired by natural principles, natural systems, and it's really a way to look at designing products, services, programs, and even systems, human-centered systems, taking a look at the eons of R&D that's available in nature, and it's royalty-free.
Yeah.
We've lost sight of how we can learn from nature.
Royalty-free. Now that sounds like a businessman would plug right into that. Yeah. But back up a second. You talked about it applies in so many different areas. It's not just like how can I create a product that might mimic nature, but the other areas too, like human interaction. What is it? Yeah,
it really began as a product design strategy going back to the 40s with the invention of Velcro, which was one of the first biomimetic products to be commercialized. It's now a billion-dollar brand. But if you look at any kind of a system, whether it's human system, communications, healthcare, how the body works, you can really inform a new design strategy by looking at a natural system such as we saw with honeybees or other organisms.
Yeah. Speaking of Velcro, I read that it was the gentleman had burrs in his dog, right? Now, I get burrs in my dogs, but Velcro's already created, so I can't do that.
Yeah, and he happened to be a fastener research scientist.
Oh,
he was
all right.
working in that field.
Hence, he really felt the connection there to what he was doing. So biomimicry, that really speaks to the issue of sustainability, and how we can more naturally enter a future of green technology and conservation. I mean, relate those two things together.
Sure. Biomimicry, it really focuses on a couple of areas. One is it does no harm. There really, if you look at, for example, the work we do in the waste stream, there really are no landfills in nature. Everything takes on a new form as it expires or its initial form is ended. So it's really looking at taking things on a hyperlocal basis and a restorative basis to bring new meaning to a system. Yeah. So it's a very sustainable closed-loop way of looking at things versus the linear treatment that we've given to different processes and products over the years.
Meaning if I use something, then it's not going to be like in a circle of reuse or regeneration. It's going to be just pushed aside or wasted or thrown away.
It could be random or it could be planned, but the idea is to keep it in a regenerative mode so it has new purpose wherever it ends up.
Now, talk about biomimicry as it's developed. I mean, is it hotter now? I mean, is it more, are people really paying attention to it more? Or what?
Yes.
Give me that sense.
It's emerging from product design into other forms of design. The medical community, communications, transportation. One of my favorite examples is looking at how the feathers of a peacock actually take on color. If you look at the feathers of a peacock under a microscope, they have no color. It's just the way that they're designed that they can refract light and bend light waves to take on different color, and that's taking on a whole new area of study and R&D in the clothing business, the textile business, how we actually express color, for example.
Wait. So go back. This peacock. I look at a peacock, and of course it's colorful. And NBC likes their peacock, right? But it's not there.
It's a structural color design. So the structure of the actual feather itself, which is clear or colorless, the way it refracts and bends light creates the color combinations.
Yeah. Interesting. Now, talk to me about the economics of biomimicry. I mean, what is it going to provide for an organization, a business who really embraces those principles of design?
Mm-hmm. It really, to me, it simplifies matters. I tend to work in sustainability and talk a lot about sustainability in my daily role. I look at it as common sense. So if you look at what works in nature, why wouldn't we adopt that to our human-centered systems or use it as a problem-solving tool? It's a very powerful, and it's also a very simple way to get out of the box. I'm tired of that term, but I still use it.
Right. It's like synergy.
Yeah.
I don't like synergy.
Or at the end of the day, let's not say that. Let's promise not to say that.
If we could edit this show, we'd just get rid of those. All right.
But it really becomes a very simple notion, looking at what works outside of our window, underneath our feet, under the sea, and applying it. You biologize the question that you're trying to resolve. Mm-hmm. You find your champion in nature, and then you learn from that champion, and you adapt those practices, principles, rules, et cetera, into your product or service design. That's the biomimicry design spiral.
Okay. Well, that really seems to suggest that if we want to look towards a future, sometimes we can look way in the past, right? I mean, these things that we're taking designs from aren't like new things.
No.
I mean, burrs on dogs have been around for a long time, but
exactly.
All of a sudden, finally, let's get into this notion of sustainability as kind of a business approach. Mm-hmm. I mean, do you have any counsel you provide to businesses in terms of why embracing biomimicry in a sustainable way makes sense for them?
Yeah, it affects what we know now as the triple bottom line, which is people, planet, and prosperity. And sustainability, for sustainability to really work for an organization or a design strategy or an organization, you need a goal set. You need to have baseline established and then measure against it. And if you look at it through the lens of people, planet, and prosperity versus just the traditional bottom line of finance and economic return, you'll see a different path to achieving an outcome. And when you apply biomimicry to it, you can study one of many millions and billions of examples in nature to help you down that path to your objective.
Excellent. Fascinating. Thank you, Mike Dungan, Entrepreneurs for Sustainability. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Be part of the conversation. Follow us on Twitter at NEOtropolis TV and on Facebook, YouTube, and Google+. When you visit neotropolis.org, check out the archives and sign up for our e-newsletter.
Now it's time for a big idea about something or other. Knowing Craig, it's going to be something big, of course, but with sustainability in mind. Joining me now is Craig James, NEOtropolis contributor, to offer up a single idea about the diverse ways of, quote, sustainability for us to ponder a minute. So,
hey, Luke,
what's the big idea?
The big idea this week, Luke, is to share.
Share, like to share. Kindergarten, like when I learned to give some of my candy to...
Well, I probably should add some color to this, shouldn't I?
All right, please.
All right, sharing is not a new idea. Actually, it's been around for a long, long time, like since the beginning of time. We're wired to share. It's in our DNA.
Right.
But we've lost our way.
Yeah.
We've gotten all caught up in consumption and production and ownership. Believe it or not, that's not normal.
Well, I mean, but it's all around us at this point, right?
It's been for generations, so it feels like it's a long time, but it's actually a new phenomenon.
So what could we...
Example.
Yeah, give me an example.
Do you have a power drill, by chance?
I do. It kind of looks maybe a little bit like this.
Right. How about your real power drill? Where is it right now?
It's not on me. I don't...
Like everybody across the country, your power drill and millions across the country are sitting idle. The life of a power drill might be 20 years.
Right.
Guess what? That's 10 million minutes.
Oh, my God. What if you use it, though? Let me interrupt. What if you use it for Swiss cheesing?
Then we have another discussion to have with you, Luke. But the reality is we use these things only about 10 minutes across the life of the power drill. So that's use about 0% of the time. Does that make sense?
No, not at all.
So
not at all.
There's a solution.
Right.
And there's a new movement called collaborative consumption. And collaborative consumption is actually taking this old idea of sharing and supercharging it, right? We used to be in the community, in the village, and we knew each other. We knew what we needed.
Right.
And then we became disconnected. We became isolated. And now we're reconnected with the internet and technology and social media. So once again, we can know what we need from each other, but we can supercharge it and scale it globally.
Yeah, so we can kind of go from, this massive amount of stuff, right? Does this remind you of your Christmas time at all?
Been there, we all have.
Yeah. And from there, it really is too much, but there's got to be a solution. I mean, what else can we do?
Well, here's the thing. With collaborative consumption, what we're doing is we're talking about not necessarily owning, but having access to to what we need,
Okay.
to what we want.
Okay.
We don't need the drill. We don't have to own it. We want the whole.
Right.
We want to listen to a song. We don't need to own a CD. And there's all kinds of benefits, economically, environmentally. And what people are tuning into lately is our brains, brain science, say that we're actually happier. We're more satisfied, and the happy juice runs around our brain when we give, share, and collaborate, not when we own or buy.
Excellent. And so I'm really going to bottom line this for you, for people. Collaborative consumption, paying for the use of a product without necessarily owning it. Where can they find out more information?
That's pretty easy, cat-strat.com.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Craig. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Luke.
All right. All this sustainability talk got me to thinking. There's a podcast that I heard recently from a show called Freakonomics Radio. The episode was called "Hey Baby, Is That a Prius You're Driving?" And it had to do with the idea of conspicuous consumption of the "I'm greener than you" variety. A number of economists pointed to solid research showing that a major reason the Prius hybrid outsold other hybrid cars was that it established itself as a separate model of car, not just a hybrid version of something already on the road, like a Ford Fusion looks like a Ford Fusion hybrid, exactly the same. So what this means is that Prius owners got credit for being good little greenies wherever they went, and that it was important for them to be identified that way. And it's not just individuals who want to be tagged as good and green, corporations do too. Coming up, vegetated roofs and retrofitted buildings. But first, let's hear from Kathleen Colden about what's coming in over social media.
Well, I hope you're all checking in with us on Facebook.com/NEOtropolis for our Wonderwall question of the evening. Which do you think is a better green action? Recycling your bottles and cans or walking to all of your errands when they're close to your home? And one of our first comments already on Facebook, we've got a nice conversation going on, is from Dan LeBeau. He thinks recycling is much better, which we're finding a lot of people are talking about. So check with us on Facebook. We'll be back at the end of the show.
Here on NEOtropolis, we're not just concerned with ground level stuff, and we've already been accused of having our heads way up in the clouds of highfalutin theory. But what about somewhere in between, like rooftop level? Let's get back to the idea of being naturally futuristic and see what that means when it comes to building design and retrofitting. Joining me now is Cindi Cicigoi, Vice President of Sustainable Initiatives and Facilities for RPM Building Solutions Group. That's a mouthful. Hello, Cindi.
It is. Hello.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
So I became interested in Tremco, and I think there's going to be some shots coming up about your vegetated roof. But that interested me, usually a roof is just a roof. What's different about a vegetated roof?
Well, a vegetated roof, number one, is beautiful. It's a great place for our employees to go and take a walk around the path up there. But you know what? It also retains water that won't go into the storm sewer. It provides a great R value. It's a great insulator.
R value?
Insulating value.
Okay.
So, for example, on our building, it reduced our cooling load by 20 tons.
20 tons?
Which is huge.
Give me a percentage of that. Is that
Well, for example, we have two 80-ton cooling units, and reducing our cooling load by 20 tons is substantial.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. And I like that idea of the vegetated roof can be kind of a good place for employees to go.
Great.
Do people have lunch up there or just kind of hang out? It's probably a non-smoking roof, though.
Yes, we are a non-smoking building. Yeah, absolutely. But it's fun. There's a walkway that goes around, and there's about 16,000 plants up there.
Cool. Wow. Okay.
Quite a number of varieties of sedums and grasses and goldenrod and daisies. We grow some herbs, rosemary, thyme, sage, parsley, basil.
And then you make some spaghetti sauce.
That's right.
In the boss's office.
Actually, we do use it in our cafeteria every day.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's really fun.
So I know Tremco, besides this vegetated roof, is retrofitting its headquarters. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, there's a number of different components of the retrofit. The building is 40 years old. It was very inefficient. Leaky single-pane windows, an old facade, an old HVAC system. So we had a number of goals, one of which was to reduce our energy consumption, which I think we did very well. We're still gathering some data, but I know I personally took a couple of data points 2 winter months before the retrofit and after the retrofit, and I showed that we reduced our gas consumption by 60%.
Whoa, that's serious. I mean, that's not just, oh, it's a nice thing to do. But,
that's right.
But speaking of nice thing to do, I wanted to get into a little conversation about, in the corporate world, there's a responsibility toward shareholders and towards customers, of course, right? Mm-hmm. So it seems to me that at this day and age, you have a lot of people who are interested in appearing green for business purposes. Not that they're not doing good things, but we talked a little bit before about this notion of greenwashing. Can you say more about that?
Well, greenwashing is just people or corporations who maybe stretch the truth a little about what they're doing, and as opposed to green blushing, which is maybe someone who doesn't want to be so forthcoming so that they're accused of greenwashing.
Right.
But you know what? Yeah, I think you just need to be truthful about what you're doing. At Tremco, we have embarked on this sustainability initiative a few years ago. We have a long way to go. We've made great progress over the last couple of years, but we're new at it, and there's a lot of work to do, and there will always be a lot of work to do.
Yeah, well, this is certainly in the NEOtropolis wheelhouse, because you're talking about the technology that can be brought to bear on issues like energy efficiency and the retrofitting of your building. And then, in a global sense, it's so clear to me that people want to be considered good corporate citizens, and that may or may not have the full support of their boards or shareholders if it means that it's a substantial investment. Is that true, or do I have that, is it where's the bottom line in that?
Well, I think sustainability can save money. We have had a number of initiatives that have saved us quite a bit to our bottom line. Just my example of our 60% gas reduction, we also reduced our electric consumption by 30%. So I think sustainability can pay off.
What about your particular job? I mean, you're the Vice President of Sustainable Initiatives. Do you see counterparts in other industries, or even the same industry as Tremco, that you're an executive level person who's now in charge of this stuff?
Yeah, I think more and more that's happening. I think there's a much greater awareness of sustainability out there among consumers and companies. We're seeing that our customers more and more are asking us what our sustainable practices are, and certainly investment analysts are looking at a company's sustainable practices as well.
So they're making sure that there is a consideration of the future, right?
Yep.
I mean, being aware of future and advancing the corporate goals, your business goals, and to be a smart, good, profitable business can sometimes really include that sustainability, that kind of thing.
Yep.
Well, that's excellent. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Cindi Cicigoi of Tremco, and we appreciate you here on NEOtropolis.
Thank you.
So now we're going to come back with our social media wrap, and we'll be doing that in just a moment. Kathleen Colon will return and join us. Back now with NEOtropolis' social media expert, Kathleen. What do we have tonight, Kathleen? What's going on?
We have lots of opinions on the Wonder Wall. What's better, recycling bottles and cans or walking to appointments in your neighborhood? What do you think?
I would say that people are used to recycling and are okay with it. It's just like another thing to do, and probably we still love our cars a lot.
Absolutely. And we can go to some of the comments here. People aren't going to places.
Okay.
Most people live in a place where they need to drive to the drugstore, the corner store. There are not many walking districts. So most people are saying, yes, it's much easier and more economic to recycle.
Right.
So we've got a lot of comments on Facebook. We'd encourage people to, continue telling us their opinion. We'd really like to understand.
Yeah. And let me hear from you. You're the social media expert, but where do you fit into this kind of thing?
Well, I do live in a walking district in Little Italy, so I do walk to quite a bit and have always been a fan of that. I think so much of the recycling effort is some of that greenwashing that you were talking about. You know, corporations jumping in on this because it's good for them.
Right.
So I'm a little
Right.
skeptical of some of those types of efforts. I'm always looking at it with a skeptical eye.
Yeah. And I think that what people can continue to do during this week is to give it some thought and to come in and tell us about that and other things that they want to hear about on NEOtropolis.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we've got an engaging conversation going on Facebook.com/NEOtropolis TV, on Twitter, and as I mentioned before, we're experimenting with Google+, which is the next big thing in social networking online.
Yeah. Now, can people also join in on email?
Absolutely. Very simple, the old-fashioned way, info@neotropolis.org.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Kathleen. I really appreciate it. Well, that's it. We're done. But through the miracle of technology, of course, we give you 24/7 access to this and every episode of NEOtropolis at neotropolis.org. I'm Luke Frazier. We'll be back next week with another NEOtropolis episode. And we're going to take a look at news and information, kind of sharing across this cyberspace and all the way to handmade paper. Now, you may say, well, how does cyberspace relate to handmade paper? And what I need to tell you is that you need to tune in next week to NEOtropolis, and we'll tell you exactly how cyberspace relates to artisan paper. I'm Luke Frazier. See you next time.
Funding for NEOtropolis has been provided by the following.
My sister is incredible.
You wouldn't believe what my sister's doing.
She works at MSNBC.com.
She's a nurse.
She helps deliver online news to the world.
She goes out and helps homeless veterans.
She's amazing.
She's an angel.
I've always known Gina was ambitious, but she found her true sense of purpose.
Joan really found direction
at Kent State.
My name is Joan Stykes-Jenkins.
And I'm Gina Stykes-Schuhalter.
And we're proud graduates of Kent State University.
The John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, supporting transformational ideas that promote informed and engaged communities.